Today's teaching is titled The Importance of the Lama. And so this covers a lot of area. It depends in a way on where you are on the path, what level of practitioner you are. So to begin with, we can't meet the Buddha. He lived and gave teachings 2,500 years ago. And while his teachings have been written down since then, and at least for us, translations of some of them are available, but we can't really have a personal meeting with the Buddha, attend a teaching that he gave, and so forth. But these teachings have been passed down in an unbroken lineage to the present time, thanks to people from the time of the Buddha's disciples to the present time of the 17th Karmapa, Trangu Rinpoche, Traleg Rinpoche, Khenpo Karta Rinpoche, Tai Situ Rinpoche, and a large number of other teachers. And so it's important that these teachings be kept pure and they be kept alive. And they are kept pure and alive by these teachers that are presently alive, having studied them from their realized teachers, and then having realized them, they become the teacher, the teaching, they become the teachings. And they can pass the teachings on to us. Books and videos cannot replace the teacher. A book or a video will not tell you if you've missed something, or if you've misunderstood, or if you've added something. And all of that can happen very easily, even when you have a teacher. The books and videos won't tell you what you need to work on. And in fact, if we don't have a teacher and we just work on what we think we need to work on, what frequently happens is we work on what we want to work on, which are the easy things. And we don't see our really important issues that need to be worked on. Teachers give us vows, empowerments, reading transmissions, practice instructions, personal guidance, blessings, their love, and lots of other things too that we receive from the teachers. But they're important for even more than that. Beyond that is that we are putting our faith in the teacher to guide us. And what we learn from the teacher will affect us in this life as well as our future lives. If we have a supervisor in the world, in our employment, what that supervisor does will affect us in this life, and then that's it, and perhaps only until we retire. But with the teacher, what they do and our relationship will carry with us into our future lives. And so it's extremely important to have a good teacher. And in fact, an unqualified teacher can lead you away from the Dharma and away from liberation. And an unqualified teacher can create huge obstacles that will remain with you for lifetimes. Unfortunately, there are out there unqualified teachers that you want to avoid. So here are some simple qualities that are necessary in a teacher. I'm kind of right now talking in very general terms here. The first one is that they need to have listened to, contemplated, and understood the teachings. And they need to have meditated on these teachings and gained realization of their essential meaning. This is the difference between the words and the meaning of the words. Another way to put it is understanding the words in your head and understanding the words in your heart. And the third quality is that through practice, they maintain a direct personal experience of the teachings. So there's some very important words there. And the first one is through practice. They still practice. A teacher may practice more now than they did 10, 20 years ago. So they still practice. And they have this direct personal experience of the teachings as a result. When a great teacher would come to KTD to teach and then discuss, he would always, or she would always discuss Khenpo Rinpoche. Frequently, they would say that Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche is both a scholar and a yogi. And the scholar meant that he had studied these teachings very deeply and thoroughly, and he understood the teachings. The yogi part was that through his practice, he had gained direct personal experience of the meaning of the teachings. And so this is a very important point about teachers. You don't want a scholar alone. You want a scholar and a yogi because of this direct personal experience of the teachings. Now, it's difficult to find a completely faultless teacher. And the question always is, if there is one out there, would we ordinary beings recognize a faultless teacher? But what we can do is investigate a teacher. Where did he or she study? Under who did he or she study? Does the teacher embody the teachings, or does the behavior of the teacher kind of leave you head scratching, wondering what's going on here? Does the teacher have a good heart? And then finally, what do respected teachers say about this teacher? These are all important questions. Even in Tibet, they would say, wait and investigate a teacher for a few years before you become that person's student. And in this country, it's even more important. There are lots of teachers that teach in this country. There are lots of teachers that claim to be great teachers and so on and so forth. But there aren't that many out there as claimed to be. I once talked to Khenpo Rinpoche about this in an interview, and basically he said, be careful. So now for us, we are students of Karmapa. And so this actually is a great relief because we don't have to be concerned about the Karmapa, and we don't have to be concerned about the teachers that Karmapa authorizes. So for instance, when you come to either the Minneapolis Center or the Hay River Center or participate in these programs and teachings over Zoom, I look at myself as carrying out the activity of Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. And since he is parinirvana, I look at myself as carrying out the teachings of Karmapa. And Khenpo Rinpoche felt that he was carrying out the activity of His Holiness, the Karmapa. So that's the way I look at my my activity and what I need to do. Unfortunately, I have a lot less realization than Karmapa, perhaps no realization, but at least I have an idea about what the teachings are and how to present them and how to work with others. So once you have chosen a teacher, you need to follow their teachings diligently and purposely, that this is not a casual relationship. This is an important point, that this is a very important relationship. It's not casual, and that we need to follow the instructions of the Lama the best that we can. And if you can't, then come and explain to the Lama why you're having problems. So it's the example that I like is that you go to the doctor because you're sick or you have a chronic condition, and he then prescribes you some medicine to take. And perhaps he says, make some changes in your lifestyle, quit smoking, eat less fatty food, lose some weight, and so on and so forth. Well, if we don't take the medication or follow his lifestyle instructions, we can't benefit from the doctor, no matter how good a doctor he is. So if we apply the instructions that the teacher gives us properly and practice is part of the instructions, of course, that slowly our negativity will decrease and our love and compassion will increase. And we will start seeing our faults more clearly. And what this means actually is that we start seeing more of our faults, period. And on the other hand, the other side of that coin is that we'll see new ways of being. We'll start seeing opportunities and doors that can be gone through that we didn't even realize were there before because of our lack of clarity. So this is an important point. Now, in the Mahayana level, and I have been talking about Bodhisattva vows and bodhicitta and so forth. And in my Tuesday class, I've been talking about arousing bodhicitta and so forth. And so at this level, our teacher is considered a spiritual friend. And here's a quote. The teachings from this point on are coming from a book by Khenpo Rinpoche, and I seem to have forgotten the title of it. That's the problem. It's there's a transcript that this chapter of the book comes from, and the transcript is the importance of a spiritual friend. And so the quote is, you can test the words of your spiritual friend by seeing if you feel a warmth that nourishes your heart and mind. So the Lama at this level, we have the idea of friends. It's a friendship relationship, but it's a respected friend that is above you, that you look up to. Another term that is sometimes used is a friend in virtue. So in Vajrayana, the practices that includes deity practices, then the teacher is called a Vajrayana Master, and that is different than a spiritual friend. And I'll get into that in a minute. That we come to a spiritual friend with, you might say, frustration, dissatisfaction with samsara, dissatisfaction of where we are, a feeling of insecurity. And if we look underneath the whole thing, there is always an element of fear. And it's because we have not realized our enlightened potential. And it is this spiritual friend that is the one who can and will assist us in awakening these qualities of enlightenment within us. The teacher needs both knowledge and experience, which I talked about earlier, but also, and even more important, compassion. And this could be described as the readiness to work nonstop with others. And it's not just for his or her students, but it's for all beings. This limitless compassion. If the Lama wants you to behave a certain way with a lot of deference and making lavish offerings and so on and so forth, if it looks like the Lama is more interested in you making a big deal out of the Lama, that maybe is a Lama you want to stay away from, because the spiritual friend is interested in you and your benefit. The spiritual friend is a source of knowledge, wisdom, and enlightened qualities. The spiritual friend knows the causes of suffering and how to eliminate the causes of suffering, and how to avoid accumulating the karma that causes our suffering. So this spiritual friend then will understand all of this, and that gives them a much better understanding of you, more clarity of you, how to work with your particular, shall we say, pattern of obscurations. The student's responsibility is, first of all, don't take the spiritual friend for granted. Here is a quote from Khenpo Rinpoche. You must learn every experience and all knowledge and wisdom that he or she has. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, his parinirvana was in early October of last year, 2019, and he lived to 95. And I don't think too many of his senior students were surprised that he did die. But the point is that we needed to understand that his life was uncertain, even 20, 30 years ago, and to take advantage of his teaching, his guidance, and his compassion and his love while he is alive. You just never know. You just never know. And actually, for a Tibetan, whether it is a Tibetan Rinpoche or an ordinary Tibetan, living to 95 is very unusual. Even for an American male, I believe the average lifespan is around 80 or 81 years. And so he beat the odds by a long ways. So don't take the spiritual friend for granted. Take advantage of the spiritual friend while you can. And of course, understand your own impermanence and realize that you don't know how much longer you will be able to receive teachings and instructions and practice with your spiritual friend. Avoid going to many different teachers. Again, going to the medical example, when you want medical treatment, you go to a primary doctor, and he or she is going to be aware of all the medications you're taking, your underlying chronic diseases, conditions, and so on and so forth. And then if he can't help you or you need something more than he can give, you go to a specialist. Again, if you just keep going to doctors and never follow their advice and take the medication that they give you, there really is no benefit from it other than you could say you're wasting their time because they're unable to do anything for you. And I guess finally, Rinpoche felt that a spiritual friend that is authentic will be filled with unchanging love, compassion, gentleness. And that's like he was describing himself as far as I'm concerned. And finally, once you have this relationship with a spiritual friend, never give up on it. This is important. Don't lose interest or feel that you've got more important things to do. So now I'm going to go to the Vajrayana Master, the Vajra Master. And this would also include masters that teach Mahamudra. Frequently, both the Vajra Masters both have mastered Mahamudra practice and attained realization that way, as well as a deity practice. Now, Buddha nature is the same for everybody, whether you are a Mahayana practitioner or a practitioner of Mahamudra. And the same thing with the authentic masters, that their Buddha nature is no better than our Buddha nature. However, we have not recognized our Buddha nature. We have not recognized the nature of our mind. And as a result, we have not purified our obscurations. And so we have plenty to work with. In the Vajrayana especially, we're more concerned about what's going on inside of our mind, what's going on with our habitual patterns, our karma, and so forth. So Rinpoche talked about this here a little bit, that us ordinary confused beings don't really know that we have Buddha nature. We've heard this. We might feel that, yes, I have Buddha nature, but we've really never recognized it within ourselves. And we're taking it, you might say, as a leap of faith. But this is a traditional Tibetan list here. We do not see our Buddha nature because, one, it's too close to be recognized. We always are looking beyond ourselves for it. But it's right here, right now, with us during this Zoom conference call, or Zoom teaching here. So it's very, very close. We can't be separated from it. The second is the experience is too profound to comprehend. It's beyond comprehension. It is beyond words. It's beyond verbalization. You could say it's before words. It's before comprehension. We're always looking for words and concepts and ideas, but it precedes all of that. The example that I liked, this is kind of an old technology example, is that of a movie projector. And in a projector, you have a very bright bulb at the back of the projector, and then it goes through lenses, and then there is the film that runs in front of the lens and the bulb, and then the light goes through the film, and you have this beam of light that then flashes on a screen. And the Buddha nature is that light bulb that's always shining, that has no content. But then our thoughts are that film. And we get caught up in our thoughts and don't realize that there is this very bright bulb before the thoughts. The third is that the true nature of mind is too simple to be believed. Extremely simple. Sometimes it's called ordinary mind. It's mind before elaboration. And the fourth one is enlightenment is too wonderful for us to accept. Again, we're looking for something else that isn't quite as wonderful. In fact, isn't maybe all that wonderful at all. I was listening to a talk that Chogyam Trungpa gave, and he died in 1987. So this talk was a very old talk. And it was given at what at that time was called Vajrayana Seminary, which was, I believe it was a 12-week program, and you had 2 weeks of shamatha at the beginning and 2 weeks of shamatha at the end, and then 8 weeks of talks and other kinds of practice, and so on and so forth. And so when it came time for the questions and answers, a man said, "You know, I've been sitting in this meditation hall all summer long. I could become enlightened and the ceiling fall on me and nobody would ever know." And Trungpa Rinpoche said, "So?" And that's the idea about it's too wonderful for us to accept. We want to accept enlightenment on a much lower level, which isn't enlightenment at all. We're just, you might say, placing all kinds of expectations and attitudes and prejudice and so forth on what mind is and what it is to be enlightened. It's necessary for us to be introduced to the nature of our mind by an authentic master. And this is what Mahamudra and Vajrayana is all about, is us experiencing the nature of our mind and then deepening our relationship with it. So the master is a guide that brings his students or her students to where the master has already been. Whereas there's a saying in English, the blind leading the blind. And that is just absolutely the opposite of an authentic Vajra master. So again, you want to have an authentic Vajra master so he or she can lead you to a place where the master is very familiar with. Then once a teacher does that, it's the responsibility of the teacher to bring us students to fruition. There's actually a lot of responsibility that goes with being both a spiritual friend and a Vajra master. With a Vajra master, it's much more responsibility than being a spiritual friend. Students can be difficult. They come from different places. They have their own modes of confusion, kleshas, and so forth. And so a teacher needs to be able to work with a wide variety of different students. And if a student has a lot of downfalls and instead of going up, goes down, that can affect the teacher, both in the teacher's present life and the teacher's future lives. If it is an authentic Vajra master, on the other hand, if you follow their guidance, trust them, then every step that you take will lead you closer to enlightenment. Needless to say, patience and tolerance are very important. Diligence is a very important word, and diligence is joyful exertion, that we need to practice with this joy, sense of joy and a sense of exertion. So trust and confidence are important in the student. We have to be able to trust the teacher. So here's a very short quote of Rinpoche's. Rather than speculating, the student simply works persistently to actualize the goal. I guess to sum up this talk, is that the 16th Karmapa sent Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche to the US to establish a monastery for him. And this was before, of course, KTD had its present property. And there are stories about Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche and a very small group of monks that went with him, literally dumpster diving for food because they were not getting a lot of support from the 16th Karmapa. They were on their own, but he did it. I met Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche in 1988, the first time. And in 1989, I became his student. And he would always say to me and other people that I am not your root guru, Karmapa is. That he wanted people, his students, to feel they were students of the Karmapa. I never did exactly ask him or heard anyone else ask him, well, how do you want me to relate to you then if Karmapa is my root guru? But anyway, to go on, Karmapa sent Khenpo Ujin. He sent Khenpo Tenkyong to KTD. And I asked Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche about a year and a half before his parinirvana about who I should go to for a teacher after he is gone. And he said, the Karmapa will send somebody here and he'll be a better Lama than I am. The point being that KTD is Karmapa's monastery in the West. Karmapa is very concerned about the monastery, and it's serving people in the United States and other parts of the world as well. And so we can have confidence in the teachers that are there at KTD and those that will come in the future, that they will be authentic, good teachers, and it will be worthwhile for us to follow their teachings, receive empowerments from them, and so forth. And yet we can still consider ourselves students of the Karmapa, that the Karmapa we could feel is our main root guru.